My name is Daoud, and I am from Freehold, New Jersey. Um, a little bit about my community. I grew up in a very whitewashed community. A lot of people were basically the same in a sense, a lot of similar cultures, a lot of similar people, a lot of similar religions. It was mostly just white Christian folk, especially when I was like in elementary school. I didn't really find many people to bond with. I felt a little bit, ostracized due to my differences. A lot of what we were taught in school just made me feel like I wasn't where I was supposed to be, especially because what my parents taught me just wasn't necessarily the same. I take a lot of my family views to heart, and while I don't necessarily have all the same views as them, I am very different from them in many ways. I do still believe that I keep a lot of their views close to me. A lot of their morals are still part of my morals, and they're not something I would necessarily abandon. And that kind of pushed me to become what I am today. Being different when I was younger kind of made me want to find my home. But then I realized I don't need a home. I am who I am. I don't need necessarily to find other people like me. I don't need to, not accept myself because I'm different from others, but rather I need to learn to accept myself because I'm different, that it's okay to be different. And that's kind of what pushed me to become a little bit more of an activist of developing your personal character. I was somebody who wasn't very developed. I was always a very shy person growing up, all the way up to my sophomore year. I was extremely shy. I wouldn't talk to anybody. But as I began growing up, I decided to begin this new path towards self-development. I wanted to be somebody better. I wanted to become somebody who was more than just, that weird kid, the kid that didn't really talk, and the kid who was like very bland because he was too afraid to show who he actually is. And that's where it led me to where I am today. I work to become someone who is outgoing, someone who is willing to talk about my experiences and how my life is different, and even incorporate other people into my lives and allow them to experience the differences between my culture and theirs. Next, I wanted to move on to an idea I had for the MLK program. Something that really bothers me. If you do not know, I work in EMS with emergency medical services. I'm not a certified EMT, but I did take my class. I just never got to taking the test. And I always ride on ambulances, and one of the most common calls we get is public intoxication calls. And very often we go to those calls, take them, transport them to the hospital. It's very common for us to see people that we call regulars now. We know them on first name basis, we see them nearly every day. And one of the things that's bothered me is we've never really taken the time to actually talk to them and put them in touch with the necessary resources they need to get their lives back on track. I know many of them don't necessarily have the drive to get their life on track. A lot of them aren't necessarily looking to fix their lives. They aren't necessarily in a position where they are able to reach out to the right resources. But I believe that if we took the efforts that we put into just transporting them, we spend a lot of time on the ambulance with them simply transporting. If we took that time and actually talked to them and try putting them in touch with the right resources, we'd be able to do a lot more. So as a project, what I wanted to do was incorporate a new protocol into EMS where we would have to, for people who are commonly seen as our regulars, for people who are in the system multiple times, for let's say more than 4 or 5 times where they come up as public intoxication, we ask them, do you need any sort of help? Can we put you in touch with any resources? Even just a helping hand. It doesn't necessarily need to be a push, but just a helping hand to the people who can potentially use our resources, who we can put in touch with the right rehabs and be able to pull them out of the little hole that they're in. It'd be a big help, and it's not a very cost-heavy kind of project. You just buy a few brochures. You don't even need to necessarily buy brochures. You just get brochures from different rehabs, hand them out. It's more of just incorporating a protocol into the EMS world, and then if necessary, you can make a little program that indicates when a person has been taken more than, let's say, 4 or 5 times to the hospital for public intoxication, so that it requires you to ask them about it, to ask them if they need help, to ask if you want to put them in touch with the right resources. And while it's not much to put them in touch with the right resources, it could potentially change their lives. I know I've had many different patients who are not necessarily willing to get their lives back on track, but they were sent to rehabs. They did get better for a bit, but they happened to come back, but they attempted to make their lives better. The rehabs did help them for a while, and I remember one of our patients we did not see for 2 or 3 months because he went to rehab, and he was doing so well until he fell off again. So I believe that if we take the time out of our days to, talk to these people, to do what's right for them, that we can make a big difference in their lives. And incorporating it into EMS would be a great place, especially because we get to know them on a first name basis. We get to talk to them a lot. Hi, my name is Nader Daoud, and I live in Freehold, New Jersey. I've lived here all my life, and I grew up with a very non-diverse group of people. Many of the people here were very similar, very, I guess, American in a sense, and surrounded by like a white Christian kind of group. My entire school was always like that, and I remember as a little kid I felt very ostracized because I wasn't the same as the older people. To this day, I still think about some experiences I had as a kid where I didn't necessarily feel accepted because of who I am and what I was taught by my parents. I've always been very different in that sense. I'm very different from others, especially in ethnicity. A white African-American Muslim who is just very out of the norm. Even in Morocco, I'm really not considered the norm, really just out of place. But I've lived